open up with public comment. I guess that would be you, Ed.
That would be me? Okay. I got a couple things for you. First of all, I got a question out there at Grandview Loop. I guess they've come in and talked to you about resurfacing a road or something for our fire tanks up there.
I have spoken with a citizen about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
What road are they looking at per se? They don't want all three of them done by the county, right, or just?
they want the actual Grandview Loop to be taken over as a county road. As far as any additional work, I asked them to talk to you. Would that be just to your tanks? Is there an option there? Is there any kind of a need from the fire district? Does the road as is preclude you from being able to get water from there?
No.
Okay.
That's why I was wondering, they came in and asked for a letter from the board to decide or to ask for you guys to surface one of them. And Midway is basically the only one that we would need.
Okay,
If we made a loop, it would be probably to the northern part of the Grandview Loop, and Midway would be the way we would go.
okay. But the road as is now is,
It's rough, but
it allows you guys to do what you need to do?
yeah,
Okay, because right now it's a private
yeah,
road. Or it's a public road maintained privately,
right,
yeah.
yeah, so I just wanted to see, so if we write a letter stating we need Midway gravelled or whatever, that's all you guys need.
Right, and even then, we would have to talk about the status of that road and whether or not we would be putting
Okay.
county resources to it because it is not a county
Right.
road,
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah, I just
But it just
didn't
gives us a
want to-
tool to have the discussion,
okay,
yeah.
all right, so we will get that done then.
Thank you.
And the next thing, the Tri-County group is having a presentation on June 26th at the Myrna Loy. It's kinda like the one we did last year. And this is, we're gonna have the fire chief from Santa Rosa come up and give a presentation on what happened down there when he lost all that, structures and stuff down there. So if you guys, anybody's interested, I need to know so I can get tickets for you guys again. So that'll
I'm
be
interested, if you would.
the 26th at 7 PM at the Myrna Loy.
7 p.m.
And I will get tickets. Anybody else wanna go? You guys wanna go?
I just got here.
Yeah, I don't know, I have to look at my schedule, I don't know. Yeah.
Let me know.
Yeah.
If the 26th doesn't work, we do have another presentation going on the 27th. It's gonna be at the Helena Middle School. Yeah, we don't have to have tickets for that one, but it should be a good presentation, like the one we had last year about the mega fires. So.
That was invaluable for understanding the era that we're
Right.
in. This one just seems to me that it should be a part two.
Pretty much that's how it's gonna be set up, I believe.
Cool.
We've got Mr. Finney from Forest Service is gonna be one of the speakers too, so he's gonna go through some of the history and stuff with the fires, I believe, so. Okay. That's all I got, unless you have some questions for me.
No, I talked to one of your board members, but, we did borrow about $2,300 from the fire district last year, through the entitlement, so it wasn't from any of your mills. But we used it to, make the district court budget whole. So we'll be giving that back this year through your entitlement,
Okay,
just so you know. But it wasn't a lot, it was about $2,300,
okay,
yeah.
all right. All right, well, have a good day.
Thanks, Ed, you
Thanks,
too.
Ed.
See you guys.
Thanks, Chief. There's one for 14th training.
Okay, let's see, we got minutes here from June 6, 2018.
Move to approve said minutes as presented.
Chevy parking lot
Motion been made, second to approve minutes for June sixth, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion carries. It's a quarterly meter lease from the accounting department, all departments, and Connect Telephone monthly maintenance services. The Department of Health and Human Services, copy of the task order contract number for your organization to review and sign.
Is that one for WIC?
Yes.
I move to approve the ongoing task order for WIC program from DPHHS.
No, sir. I think this is, what does it say? Oh, this is for the immunization program.
Oh, okay. How about I amend my motion, and instead of WIC, say immunization program?
You still second, Frank?
Yeah.
Motion been made, second to sign the contract for the immunization program, Department of Health and Human Services, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion carries.
We'll probably see WIC next week. They do them all this time of year.
Letter from Montana's Department of Transportation, state fuel tax allocations to counties. Total $61,338.17. You have a budget sheet for us here from the Environmental Health Office Sanitarium. That's all the mail we got. Anybody have anything until our 11 o'clock with Debbie? I guess do the commissioner's update. I spent Wednesday night at the Three Forks at South End meeting and all day Friday with the hospital board meetings.
I attended that Three Forks meeting, got phone calls, different things, otherwise it's business as usual.
I attended the meeting as well, and just a point of clarification, Wheatland is actually a certified designated place. It's an official title for that area that is Broadwater County. And so I did spend Wednesday evening at the Wheatland meeting. I think it's important for those folks to have a differentiation from Three Forks, because they're not Three Forks residents, they're Broadwater County residents, but they live in the Wheatland area, which again is a designated, certified designated place, and that was put together by Nicole with the previous census. I also had a meeting with the Board of Crime Control, still ongoing issues we're trying to resolve there. And then numerous HR issues that are still ongoing as well. So that's it.
Does anybody have anything until our 11 then?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different things we should talk about. budget for one. And maybe they should wait for Debbie, maybe we should, recess, I don't have a preference, it's up to you guys.
I'd we start on it now and see what, the rest of Debbie has to go with it, we got some stuff to go through.
Well, I think we all do, since this came to all of us, I think, I can't imagine I'm the only one who doesn't have, or who has concerns about some of the different budget proposals that we have received this year. We're one county, and what affects one budget or one employee affects everybody. And I think we need to have that view, when we start off in the budget process, to have a view that we're just gonna help one and kind of ditch all the others is not a healthy way to budget for the county. We're in this together, so I guess starting with Julie's proposal, which would be the county sanitarian, just in reading through this, there's a number of just factual discrepancies that I think we need to address. And if we are, if we are talking about freezing all wages this year, and that's another discussion we need to have, but how do we then turn around and say, oh yeah, we're taking your money to feed your family, and we're giving it to departments that, one, refused to abide by the required 10% cuts during the last fiscal year, and refused to abide by the 2% cuts required this year to rebuild reserves. There's a false ringtone there. If we can afford to allow some departments to explode their spending, we better reevaluate freezing wages at a year when we have a CPI of 2.1. We have a trade war that's going to increase the cost of just about everything a family needs. And we have an unemployment rate that is the lowest we've ever had, that's going to make hiring qualified people even harder in the future. So I guess I would put it to you guys, do you have anything, first of all, to address in Julie's proposal for the discussion?
All that was above what her other budget was. She said that she'd cut 10% rather than the required 2. And I don't know, I think we should talk with her on it, but just an example of what this costs the county. More subdivisions and stuff, and the workload it puts on sheriff's office is a good example. Sanitarium's another one.
So show me where she cut the 10% or the 9%, Franklin, because I don't see it.
On this, when she says in here that, you know, these 2 breweries coming in, isn't that part of the plan review fee go to her covering that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's not an extra on her, that's part of the plan review fee.
Correct. So if we're going to make any arguments for or against any of these proposals, I think we need to look at the facts. Fact number 1 is our employees were given 2 different memos prior to the one last Friday, so 3 total, that gave the dates of when budgets were due, and that's set in statute. It gave the requirements of what was due, a 2% cut, and that to go to reserves, so it wasn't being taken from any department. It was simply going to fund operations from July to November. And if they couldn't come up with that, or had an additional request, they needed to come see us by last week, today at the latest. Not a single department head opted to make an appointment to come see us today or last week, or the week before. Julie's current budget is $90,000. Her proposed budget is $99,000. Franklin, that is an increase of 10%, not a 9%
No,
decrease.
she said she'd cut on her operations to 10%.
This is the budget. If you can show me a 10% decrease.
I'm going to what she said, so that's why I think we should have her here when we're discussing this, so we know for sure what's taking place. That's my idea.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to just the facts, because we can't just take opinions, we need to look at the numbers, Franklin. So Julie should be here today, and I think we need to call her in to talk about it. But there is, since we have this memo, Franklin, this allows us to talk about some of the issues, so that we as a team are on the same page and the
That's
same
okay. Go ahead and
understanding
talk about it
based
all you
on
want.
facts. The second Mike, do you have anything more on the percentages issue? I'm accused every year of being the most conservative with the budget, and I guess I'm gonna wear that hat again. But I don't see 10 or 2% cut. Julie informed us at Board of Health that she was over budget already. We have another issue we need to talk about, and then this budget, 90 to 99, is not a decrease, it's an increase. So I do question paragraph number 2. She is not paid to be a deputy DES coordinator. If that is leading to some of the requests that she has made in order to justify that 10% increase, I think we need to look at the hours and the time she spends doing that. We do have a number of people working as deputy DES coordinators. Nicole and Allison are 2. Perhaps that's something where we could find someone else who would be interested, who doesn't have quite the workload that Julie does.
Yeah, if that's interfering with her doing her sanitary work, then I would think that's just something we need to look at. Cause if she's not getting her office work done because she's being the deputy DES coordinator, then we need to find somebody else in there. And how many deputies does he have? 3?
3 right now,
Plus Trudy Southwick, right? So he's got 4.
right? Yeah, and she's volunteer.
Well, I agree with that, if it puts extra work, but she is the one is calling on so much of this stuff. I just go back to these wrecks where there's cattle, food are involved, fires, or there's cleanup on food and stuff, but the sanitarian is there so much. So it doesn't, maybe it'd save her some time where she didn't have to be a deputy on the rest of the things, but she will be involved in so much of that stuff, I do know that.
Yeah, but is she involved as a deputy DES or is she involved as a sanitarian?
Well, she'd be involved as a sanitarian if she was the DES. So it's kind of a catch-22, I guess she's. If she wasn't as a deputy, she wouldn't have to go on all these other things, LEBC meetings and taking a lot of things like that. Just be involved in the calls, I guess you'd say.
I think the third paragraph we need to talk about in our closed door. The fourth paragraph, yeah, we are going to be increasing the fees, and that was postponed from early June until late June, I think it's the 20th is our Board of Health meeting. There's no mention in here of the grant. We were told last year about this time that the reason for hiring a contract part-time sanitarian was because it was the only way to realize a $30,000 grant from DPHHS. Then after the budget was approved, we were told, no, it's only $5,500. And then we were told at the last Board of Health meeting, no, that will be next fiscal year for $5,500. So that, some explanation should be covered in that paragraph number 4 as to where that money is. One of the comments made by Bob Denning after our audit last week was, if you have a department head who doesn't realize the revenue they were required to bring in, it's on them, and they need to realize cuts and expenses the next fiscal year. We're not proposing any major cuts, 2%, regardless of that $30,000 lost. But it needs to be a part of the picture we're looking at here, and I don't see any mention of it. I do see an increase in revenue of about $4,000, which is good. Any thoughts?
That increase in revenue, does she still have to, if she gets the $90,000 budget, she has a $4,000 increase in revenue, then that would be used to infill that 2%, or to go to her reserves is the 10% that we had from last year?
Neither. If we freeze her budget minus 2%, the 2% goes into the reserves, which is her budget. Then that $4,000 in additional revenue would also go to helping with her operations, also go to reserves. Keep in mind, we went into this year with no reserves. We're supposed to be substantially higher than that. So that's where that would go, is to the reserves to sustain this department at the budget level it's at now.
Is the 23% of the planning fee, 23% of that planning fees goes to the general fund, does that go into planning then?
No, that's something that was put, I had talked a lot with Nicole about this. That was put into practice about 15 years ago by a previous commission. And what was happening is, it's related to what we heard in Wheatland. So that development was hard and heavy. We had a contract planner, paid at about $150 an hour, who kind of saw the county through that whole process. Hit us like a tidal wave. We didn't know so much of what we know now, and we needed somebody who knew subdivision planning. So that's where WWC was first hired, and Sean Higley was at the fee of $150 an hour. So there was quite a huge amount of money that came into the planning department during that time. And what the commissioners said is, you know what, this is also putting a drag on the rest of the budget. Let's go ahead and put it at 23%, a quarter of it, into the general fund so that we can go ahead and disseminate it out to other departments, law enforcement, sanitarian, clerk and recorder, treasurer. It all kind of goes from there. Everything has to hit the general fund in order to bounce out to the other funds, unless it's dedicated to that fund. So fast forward to 2008 to 10, when there was absolutely no planning. That's when we actually brought the planning department in-house instead of contract. But by that time, so much of that money had already been paid out. There was a very small bucket left to sustain the planning department. That's what we've been working on rebuilding the last couple of years, and came up with a plan for this year. We could take that 23% out of the general fund and put it back in planning, or we can continue to bounce 23% into the general fund, so we can bounce it back out to those departments that are affected by planning. With our new plan, I propose leaving it as is. But it's certainly something we can talk about and negotiate. The second to the last paragraph, the paragraph, second paragraph on page 2, is more of what's in paragraph 4. And again, nice plus that there's going to be an estimated increase of 2,500, but it still doesn't offset the increase requested. The next paragraph. This vehicle does have 120,000 miles on it. It is not being driven like a law enforcement vehicle. It needs upkeep, but I drive a car that has well over 250,000 miles, so 120 seems really low to me. I think you stay up on the upkeep. You make sure that you take it into the shop and have it looked at and reviewed. You change the oil. You make sure you have quality tires. It still has a good number of years on it. We did start a savings account for Julie in a CIP. I would like to see that grow, but when she asked for a minimum of $30,000 for an SUV, that's way above what we should have to pay for a vehicle that's driven not that much. I mean, I know she goes to the different areas of the county, but this is not a commuting vehicle. It's not, I think that's excessive. State surplus has a number of vehicles that are still in good shape. There's options. I know that, I don't know how you guys feel, but I would be absolutely opposed to $30,000 for an SUV for this department.
I know she wanted one for 30,000, she just said that it can run up to 30,000 if I remember on that.
Franklin, it says a minimum of 30,000. That means it's a starting point we're talking about. Again, I'm just gonna go to the facts.
I don't see where the vehicle with $120,000 is something you need to get rid of.
Oh, I'm not in favor of getting rid of it, I would like to know for sure how the shape it's in and everything. Where did that one come from originally?
It was
I
a
don't think it was
purchased
the
used
sheriff's
vehicle.
Huh?
It was a used vehicle purchased probably from Broadwater Ford, but it came from a dealer. And it was before my time, so I can't give you any more details than that. When I first started on the commission, we asked Julie if we could borrow the vehicle for some of the different trips we needed to take. It's before we had any kind of a fleet, conferences, district meetings, those kinds of things. We used to travel together as a team. And we were told at that time that that vehicle was purchased from a dealer specifically for planning and sanitation use. And it just was not cost effective to share it with the commissioners. It was after that we decided to start the fleet, where we have our Fusion, which gets great gas mileage, and then the sheriff's department gave us the white Explorer, which is running great and quite an
What year
asset,
is
so
that?
thank you. Ours, the
The white one.
No, wait,
08,
I think it's a 2008 or 9.
yeah, it works really good. Fusion is probably about the same. it was bought in 12 used. I think it had 38,000 miles on it.
I think that White Explorer is actually a little older, I think it's like an '06, actually, think about it. We still had our Crown Vics when we got that.
We had 5 people in it, went to Great Falls, it was comfortable for all 5, it's a good vehicle.
How many miles do you guys put on your cars before you?
Our total, well, we tend to do like what other agencies try to do, and it's roughly right at 100,000. If we can rotate them out then before they really start costing us on maintenance. Our total fleet, we put on an average of 218,000 miles a year. So patrol deputies do about 28 to 30 a year.
And you guys just kind of drive those around at a leisurely pace, right? You know, Sunday drivers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that she drives it like she stole it, but I would if we were talking about one of yours.
Some of ours, you know, like I've talked to you guys about it before, is, you know, if we can maybe stop trading those in, and if you guys can use some of those as we rotate them out. The maintenance has been good on them, and if you went back to using it to a regular vehicle, you could probably get some more mileage out of them, like, extension office, you know, with that Durango. Maybe see how that works, you know, but we do have some that are definitely coming up again, so.
I agree with Brandon, I think that's the best way to go, and then it frees us up to be able to fund new vehicles for you guys, and you guys do need new.
Yeah, we have one that has, one Explorer right now, it has 98,000 on it right now. So, I mean, that'd be a conversation that we could have. One truck that's coming up as well, the white, but I think maybe we talked about possibly the road department then, but I guess we'll just leave it up to you guys.
We have a list.
Yeah, we keep pretty,
Oh.
pretty close track of it, just because if we get too far out there, it'll start costing us a lot of money. I think that one Durango was about $14,000 we spent on it in 1 year just to keep it up to the standards that we have to have it at, so.
Using those for our fleet or for our sanitation or extension is a whole lot better idea than taking 30,000 for a vehicle that can have 100,000+ miles on it. And then putting that money into the CIP for the sheriff's vehicles, I think makes a whole lot more fiscal sense.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Daryl, for your learning curve, we'll get you a copy of these letters.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything to flatten out the curve is great.
Right. Right now, that curve is,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty steep, yeah.
We told everybody we were freezing budget. Well, she's got $9,000 in here just in salary increase.
You'll see every single line item throughout the expenditures for wages as well as operations is increased, except for minute decreases in six. $50, $1,200 to $1,000, and those are nothing. Her total cuts come to just 1.1%.
So if Julie does retire, is the hire, when we hire her replacement, does that, what does that do to pay scale?
We can talk about this because she's brought it up to the Board of Health, but we don't have anything in writing, so we really shouldn't be talking about it in a public meeting.
Okay.
But let me answer the question this way. For anyone who retires, any department, generally what you do is this is the reason that we try and have COLA every year. It is extremely poor management on many levels to have a person paid, say, $26 an hour, and then to have them retire after being with the county for 20 years, and go out and advertise for that position and have no applicants. Advertise again because it's a required position, and start at $30 an hour because we couldn't find somebody. Now you've got a brand new person who's coming to the county brand new, they need to be trained, and they're making $4 an hour more than the person who left you after 20 years. That travels throughout the county, the employees, their families, their friends, who are solidified then that they're being way underpaid. So what you try and do is hire new employees at less than the person who just left. So we, for example, would advertise this position at $22, $23 per hour, see what we can get. We may get somebody, we may have somebody who hits it out of the park through the process, who comes back and says, I won't take it for less than 26, 27, 30, whatever. So that's kind of the dilemma that we're in with our whole county. For this particular position, for example, it is in the high percentage of our wage classification. This is one of the highest paid positions in the county just because it's been here for so long. So that may be one of those that we can advertise at $22, $23 an hour. This position by law requires a specialized bachelor's degree or a master's degree. That's gonna cost us. So, does that answer the question,
Yeah.
even though it's a little abstract? If there is a gap between a retirement of an employee and hiring a new employee, you have vacancy savings, which you can put into the budget for other operations or to afford to pay a little bit more. If there's an overlap where you afford someone, and we would have to discuss this, 2, 3, 4, 6 weeks of training, then you're doubling up on what you're paying a new employee, especially at a higher level like this. So those are all things we'd have to negotiate and come to an agreement on prior to entering that process. And that's why the letter is so important.
And if we end up hiring a sanitarian that needs the 6 months training, then we have to double up on that salary, so we're gonna need to do a budget adjustment on that account anyway.
Correct, correct. And that's why we have in law the ability for a budget amendment, because those things come up. There is another person interested, so I really doubt that we'll be in a position of needing a sanitarian in training. I think we will be able to find somebody qualified. And if we can't, we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it.
So do we know what her revenues were last year?
Mm-hmm. You have a revenue report, I don't know if I brought mine with me.
She's, in this paragraph, she says it's gonna generate 36,000 in revenue. And then back here it says another is this 4,000 an additional 4,000? Or is
Correct.
this included in the 36?
The 36 is her total revenue, so yes, the 4,000 is on top of what the revenue was last year.
How often do these guys renew their septic light, their install certification?
Every year.
Every year they have to do that?
The way you build a budget at this point is you look at where your revenues were last year, for example, and we're going to be increasing fees by 30%. Off the top of my head, that may not be exact. So what you would take is last year's revenue plus 30%
Okay.
equals this is what we expect this year. And there's the revenue report.
sanitation in the general,
It is, yeah.
but it doesn't have,
Septic, it's, I think it's at the, like in the top 10 lines.
here we are. She's anticipating a $13,000 increase.
So we have two others to look at. Do you want to jump to those
Yeah,
and
we
then
can
come
jump to
back?
those, yeah.
So the next one then is Kirk's, which we talked about quite a bit. I don't know if I shared these numbers, but these are the reports from 1997. A public meeting to raise the misdemeanor fees in 2009, a memo from 10, and that was from 9 too. So the money that's coming in from fines from community service, misdemeanor, civil from the city court, or not the city court, but the JP, is actually the same numbers as shown in 97, 2009. And many of the years in between, we have 98, 99 also. So with the increase in calls, with the increase in workload, we should be seeing a marked increase. And we're just not. So I think we've come up with a plan to reflect that in the expenditure for that department. But I wanted to make sure that you had a copy of those. And I can make you a hard copy if you would like. I think they were sent out via email.
So if they're not getting, is the city not taking any community service people?
That is correct. Now, it doesn't have to be the city that takes them. It could be businesses, it could be civic organizations. They're just not getting offered the community service. That means somebody who creates or commits a misdemeanor isn't getting any kind of a penalty. Well, if you don't stop crime at that level, it escalates. This is the prevention side of the whole crime piece, crime control piece. And we can't force it. You know, if somebody is an elected official, their law says they have to show up for work one day a month. That's, that's the law. Morally, person who's paid for 80 hours should be working 50. Someone being paid for 32 should be working 45. But it's not reflected in law.
And you've seen a lot of these juveniles come through and then they're back in there again, or just, I mean, are you just seeing certain ones, or are they all over the place?
It's all over. I mean, we arrest people that are on community service. I don't think any of it really makes a difference, to tell you the truth. People don't care anymore. The only other thing I'd maybe ask is if you've checked, with active warrants on, with Justice of the Peace. I know we enter a pile of $20 speeding ticket warrants, and basically those people aren't getting arrested anymore because no other county, we're not gonna go drive across the street, bring them back for $20, and the other counties and highway patrol aren't arresting for $20 warrants either, so, I would maybe see how many active warrants he has out there compared to his revenue for fines and forfeitures, and maybe, I would assume that he's doing all he can. I wouldn't, sometimes you just can't make people pay, it's just,
And we've addressed that
there's not a lot
before.
of personal responsibility anymore when it comes to, taking care of your bad behavior, so.
And that's where collections comes in. Yeah, you're only getting 80%, but 80% versus 0, that's a big difference when it adds up. So, our last one then to talk about is Corey's request, so county attorney. Number 1, it says here in sentence number 1, the county's inability / unwillingness to fund a part-time or full-time deputy county attorney. Corey took that off the request last year in his budget, not the commission. So I take issue with the first sentence. Accuracy is important. Again, let's stick to the facts. The second sentence, I have decided to continue, or I've declined to continue working as the Townsend City Attorney pursuant to the interlocal. Again, we talked about that with Corey, who sent a letter to the city council. That is a contract between the county and the city. If Corey is going to decline that work, that interlocal comes out of his budget, not the budget of the sanitarian, the budget of the clerk and recorder, the budget of the justice of the peace. It comes out of the county attorney's budget. And I have a plan for that, which we can get to a bit later, unless you guys have some ideas you want to bring out now.
So are you talking about a plan to replace the 18?
Not to replace it, but to cover it for this year.
Okay.
And I can jump right to that if you want.
Yeah,
Okay, so the Billings Gazette ran an article yesterday that said that Lloyd Barris was not fit to stand, was found unfit to stand trial. And here's the article. One of the things one of the things driving this need to re-solidify our reserves is the $1 million price tag with this. We have currently sitting in a fund, 100,000 plus. So, that money could either stay there if it's needed, or it can be used to help fund reserves. And what I would propose is a 50-50 split of that money, 50% going to the general fund. That's where the money came from last year, but then 50% going to the reserves for the sheriff's office. It's already been spent, so it's an easy one to go ahead and put into the reserves and help out both departments. The Corey was overpaid according to 10-2-109, I think. We are only allowed to pay up to 120 hours for National Guard service. Corey was overpaid. He's now in the process of paying that back. It's about $7,800 per year. So if you look at the county attorney's budget, what you will find is that the $3 per hour raise that he got in 2009 for his staff, one of those staff is now 100% paid by the victim advocate grant from the Board of Crime Control. So that total is about $8,000 a year, leaving a deficit to cover of $10,000. So I'm saying that would be a wash, because that went to a grant. So the $10,000 that he would need to come up with to infill that last $18,000, we could actually do 1 year's payback of that overpayment, $7,800, and that's pretty darn close to the $18,000. So with taking that money from this account, putting it back into the general fund, it's a wash. So that would be my proposal.
So according to the paper, can he still be tried? He can still be tried, but what's the time frame?
I don't wanna speak on behalf of, that situation, but I can't remember what the article said in the paper, but it looks like they're gonna have a 90-day hearing on, trying to get him fit for trial. I'm assuming there would be another hearing after that, but I don't have a time period, but.
So do you know, is he still the county's responsibility, or is he now the state's responsibility since they're keeping him in Warm Spring?
Does the Warm Springs payments come out of Val's budget? Or would we have someone committed to Warm Springs, where does that money come from? I know it's expensive.
When they're committed, they become the state's, a ward of the state.
What about the holds that we do sometimes there?
That I don't know about holds.
I don't know how this works. I would be more comfortable you guys having that conversation with Corey and maybe the sheriff. And I think that, I thought that money came out of Val's budget for some reason, for any, like people in crisis that we bring up there before they have their hearings.
The only thing that would come out of Val's budget would be the special witnesses, or not even special, the expert witnesses, and depending on if that is a very high price and from out of state.
Well,
So those commitments are reimbursed by the state. Everything in that budget is reimbursed by the state except for personnel.
Yeah, no, Debbie, you know where, when we.
So another option then is, okay, let's leave that fund and just know it's, you know, it's either used for this in the future, period, or it can be at that point
Yeah.
used for the reserves, but at this point, we still have the reserve issue. But he still owes for 2015 and 16, one of those could go to the general fund then to offset that 18. So it works either way for the
I
formula.
would feel a lot better leaving that 100,000 in there, because in 90 days, we may know what's gonna happen.
Sure, that would be fine, it's an ace in the hole. If it's not used, if it is used, then it's there. But as far as that 2015 or 16 payment, one of those goes into the general fund to offset the 18. Are you good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's number one of his. It is hard to argue that there's an increase in workload when we do have the JP's office so far down. Number two, he requests the increase in the salary for his secretarial work. Or no, he suggests a decrease from 20 to 8. I would suggest, I don't think we have a choice but to keep it at 8, depending on what he does with his 2%. And this is a question for Debbie, but he says he's repaid all of his